Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised that the American election has descended into a kind of circus with the centrifugal figure of Trump, the ringmaster of mayhem, refusing to concede. When everything's so confusing, it's really helpful to have Tucker Carlson come in and tell you what America is and what's important.
Most Americans know they're not really in charge of the universe. They know there's something bigger out there, bigger than all of us combined.
Like when I watch this Tucker Carlson, I feel sort of hypnotized by the fact that he seems like he's like telling a children's story for adults about what a country is. So I feel sort of simultaneously patronized and absolutely spellbound, because I do agree that there is a higher power that's more important than all of us expressing itself through our consciousness and manifesting itself. So I'm like, yep, Tucker Carlson of Fox News, agree with you there.
When you know in your bones how small you are and how short the ride is likely to be, you tend to treat people better. Americans do. Don't let cable news fool you. Don't let us fool you.
It's interesting that we're entering into this little vortex. Don't let me fool you right now on cable news. Where's he going with this?
This is a profoundly nice country, the nicest in the world.
You can't say something like that, can you, objectively? This is the nicest country in the world. Like, what about Sweden or Nigeria? I mean, what are the criteria? Just cut to a flag. That does look nice, that flag against a blue sky. That's an outrageous claim. I mean, I'd like to know how many people have watched this and agreed with it, and I bet it's bloody loads and loads and loads of people, isn't it? And that's sort of, in a way, kind of enchanting. Perhaps we shouldn't be mocking the reductivism of Tucker Carlson. Perhaps we ought to be thinking, yeah, why are we trying to live in 300 million person nations? Why don't we just live in nice little cosy villages with our own flag and just enjoy the short ride and not trust cable news?
To pets, to strangers, we don't eat dogs, we rescue them.
We're nicer to pets and strangers.
We give more money to charity than any other place.
Fact check.
We tip our waiters more.
Come on.
There's no country on earth you'd rather be lost in.
There is. This one that I live in because I know where I am.
In some ways it's getting better. The music's definitely improving.
Well, that's the most subjective thing yet, isn't it? The music's improving. I was listening to Justin Bieber and Nicki Minaj the other day. What is it that Tucker's into that he thinks is improving? Like, where's he getting this from?
So is the food.
Is it? Is it really? With the corn syrup and the GM?
Most people here don't want an abrupt reshuffling of everything.
Only because that's never presented as an option, because we're living in stymied, stifling, narrow little neurological pathways of what's possible.
That's why we've had only one revolution. It's why we fought off the metric system all these years, and thank heaven we have.
Yeah, that metric system. Getting things into neat little tidy decimals. I still think in inches. Don't be saucy.
Christmas in America is great.
I like this bit about America. Christmas in America is great.
Even if you don't really understand what it's about.
What is this? A tree? A turkey? Jesus? What the hell's going on here? A Coca-Cola red truck? Even if you don't know what's going on. I don't know what this is, but I love it. It's not like an orgy made out of mistletoe and sweet-smelling pines. It's a sort of a festival that's been somewhat commercialised, as the image there by dear Tucker somewhat demonstrates.
It's still the happiest time of the year, and therefore it's the most American.
That's true. It's the happiest time of the year, and therefore it is undeniably the most American. He's gone on such a sort of giddy, sort of dervish swirl of logic now that I can't anchor myself in any kind of reality. It's the happiest time of year, and therefore the most American. What do you mean happiest? What do you mean American? Tucker, where are you going? Come back to reality!
America is a happy country, despite everything.
The pandemic, the collapse of the election. I mean, I sort of do adore Tucker Carlson, even for attempting to do that. One of the people that I consistently enjoy talking about sort of modern politics is Yanis Varoufakis, former co-leader of the Syriza party that came to power in Greece after the 2008 crash. He speaks with such clarity and excellence. And in this video, he talks about some of his, he just gives you his plain perspective on the Biden presidency and why, in his view, a narrow Biden victory is the worst of all possible outcomes.
Means that now A president that was originally unwilling to implement a genuinely progressive Green New Deal now has been liberated from the obligation to do so. We will have spent the last few months arguing amongst our own progressives that always saw Biden, quite correctly, as the representative of big business, that nevertheless they should hold their nose and vote for Biden because of the Green New Deal. In contrast to the Trumpist right, which is going to be united, radicalized, and also strengthened and reinforced by the fact that they are going to be in opposition.
I am minded of the great American writer James Baldwin, who in his book I'm Not Your Negro speculates on the creation of the category of the Negro, as he called it, and as was the contemporary term. He says, what kind of society needs to create that? When I saw that, I was minded of Jung's idea of the shadow, where the aspects of ourselves that we are unable to integrate are cast onto the other. The other in contemporary cultural life often shifts. It wasn't that long ago that our obsession was with Islamist terrorism, immigration, and I feel like that when you look at the sort of prejudicial and racist tropes cast onto the category about which Baldwin writes and indeed belongs, sexual prowess, savagery, laziness, all these are shadow attributes, carnality, etc., that people find hard to integrate or to own. Taking Baldwin's point, what kind of unexpressed madness must be going on that it finds its form in the rise of Donald Trump? And is this problem likely to be addressed by a return to the politics that preceded it? Question mark.
Obama's starting a book tour for his book, A Promised Land, which comes out on Tuesday.
When Barack Obama's doing a book tour during this, doesn't that sort of strike you as a little bit, I don't know, cynical?
72 million people voted for Donald Trump. What does that say to you about the state of this country?
Well, what it says is that we are still deeply divided. The power of that alternative worldview that's presented in the media that those voters consume, it carries a lot of weight.
It's interesting that that's the one that's regarded as alternative rather than this one, what is called the Blue Church, I believe, by many people online. See, the reason that I believe that there's a rise of sort of radical right-wing media is because there are a significant number of people that are not being served by this kind of media. And when he talks about alternative perspective, bloody hell, mate, we're getting into some peculiar ontological territory now, because each of us is experiencing a different reality. I'm experiencing different realities every few seconds. I go to sleep at night, I wake up, I don't know who I am or where I am. The fact is that unless we have a centralized culture that can meaningfully service a significant percentage of the population, there is going to be fragmentation. And the fact that it's as simple as the kind of current bifurcation is an indication to me that a huge number of people feel dissatisfied. How can we be self-congratulatory about that, or even certain of our own perspectives? Shouldn't all of us be endeavouring to understand people that we don't necessarily see eye to eye with, whether that's from a religious perspective or a political perspective? And ought we not consider systems that can cater for people that have radically different perspectives, accepting that these perspectives are to a degree somewhat engendered by the news sources and information sources that they consume?
Former presidents didn't have to deal with this parallel universe problem.
I think it was always out there, but always kind of underground until Donald Trump gave it voice, until Fox gave it voice.
In a way though, right, if it existed and Fox News and Donald Trump gave it a voice, then, well, it was there anyway. And I return to my earlier point, Baldwin's point, in fact, about the shadow. What is it? What is it that people want? It's just a kind of awe that at this point in history, facing the consequences that we are, having experienced what we've currently been experiencing, whether that's the pandemic or evident ecological meltdown or social unrest, that we are not willing to consider more radical alternatives. The real radical thing is the ongoing destruction and the refusal of change, the entrenchant conservatism of the politics of our time. It seems to me less radical to start to consider decentralization, regulation on corporate interests, the prioritisation of human life above all else. This to me doesn't seem radical. Perhaps I should do my own version of Tucker Carlson's placatory speech. Even though it seems like politics is meaningless, a kind of facade that takes place to conceal the deep state and corporate power that continually governs our reality, everything's absolutely fine. Even though it might seem that you're trapped in your house in a pandemic and a massive economic collapse is happening simultaneous with a lot of social unrest and ecological breakdown, it's sort of all right. The music's gotten better. People are kinder to their pets. No one would eat a pet. Why would you even do that? If you spend any time watching the kind of news that's around this electoral process, you can easily become hypnotized and spellbound. I would say that this is a time for us to look towards what is possible, to receive the signals that nature is evidently sending to us. You need to change. This could potentially be a wonderful time for the world. I don't think we are likely to enter into the new dawn of awakening consciousness, dragging behind us as we go the dusty old systems of yesteryear, even though embedded within those systems are undoubtedly some wonderful, wonderful maxims and principles. The right to pursue happiness, all people created equal. I suppose we have to look within the ashes, within the microbes, and see what truths there are that we can take with us into a future of genuine change.